A month before our wedding, after a full year of renovations and careful planning, our new home was finally ready. Riley, my fiancé, insisted I stay away from the final inspection, saying it was for my health. He claimed the lingering formaldehyde was dangerous. I believed him without question. Love has a strange way of silencing doubt. It wraps you in comfort, even when the truth knocks softly at the door. Until one afternoon, while shopping for wedding supplies, fate placed someone unexpected in my path. A neighbor I had said only briefly before. Her casual words would become the hammer that shattered my illusion. She told me something I wasn't prepared to hear. The house had actually been completed 6 months ago, and 3 months ago, a young woman had already moved in. Even more devastating, she had seen Riley, my Riley, holding that woman in an embrace meant only for a wife. And that's exactly what he called her. Then, as if orchestrated by destiny itself, a voice called from behind me. I turned and saw the woman. She looked oddly familiar. "That young man walking beside you, your husband or your brother?" she asked abruptly. I wasn't sure why she needed to know, but I answered honestly. "He's my husband. We're already registered, just waiting for the wedding ceremony." Her expression shifted, subtle but undeniable. A flicker of pity crossed her face. "Is your new home around here? I live nearby, too. Do you remember me? You once asked me about property management in this area," she said gently. Her words stirred something in me. I did remember her. I've always been sensitive to my environment. My health demands it. I value peace, quiet, and well-maintained spaces. That's why Riley and I spent so long searching for the perfect home. She had been one of the friendly faces that made us feel welcome. I nodded. But as I watched her hesitate, a strange unease began to rise inside me. "I normally wouldn't get involved," she continued with a sigh, "but I can't watch you live in a lie. 3 months ago, a young woman moved into that house. I saw your husband holding her. He called her his wife." Her words landed like stones in water, spreading ripples of disbelief that touched everything I thought I knew. I clung to logic. "The renovation company just called me 2 days ago," I said, my voice unsteady. "They told me the work was only recently completed. Are you sure it wasn't someone else?" But even as I asked, I knew the answer. Riley had been so firm, telling me not to visit the house, insisting the air quality was too dangerous, that he would handle everything. I thought he was protecting me, but now I saw it differently. He wasn't protecting me. He was hiding me from the truth. The truth that the home I helped design, every color, every fixture, had become someone else's sanctuary, someone else's secret. "I even took a photo," the woman said, pulling out her phone. "Don't blame me for interfering. I can't stand cheaters." She scrolled through her gallery. "People say I'm old, but my eyes are sharp, and so is my memory. The moment I saw that girl wasn't you, I snapped the picture. It's strange how you can feel heartbreak and gratitude at the same time." As heavy as my chest felt, I listened to her with complete attention. For once, I didn't dismiss the warning of an elder. I thanked her sincerely. We exchanged numbers, and she sent me the high-resolution image. "I think he's coming back," she whispered. "I'll slip away now, but if I learn anything more, I'll let you know." And then she vanished into the crowd, leaving behind a truth I could no longer ignore. Moments later, Riley returned, smiling, relaxed, carrying 2 cups of milk tea. He glanced at the woman's retreating figure. "Who was that?" he asked, handing me the drink, inserting the straw with care. I smiled faintly, keeping my face calm. "Oh, just someone asking about kids' clothes. We were comparing brands." He chuckled, then wrapped his arm around me. "You and your love for kids," he teased. "But with your health, let's enjoy being married for a while, before we think about children, okay?" I said nothing. I just nodded. On the way home, I casually suggested, "Why don't we go check out the house together?" At a red light, he squeezed my hand reassuringly. "I was just there yesterday," he said. "I opened all the windows to air it out. I know you're eager to see it, so I took plenty of photos and even shot a video. I'll show you everything when we get home." I didn't confront him, not yet. Some truths require silence before they can be spoken aloud. When the light turned green, he kept driving, unaware that my mind was no longer on his words, but on the photo now saved on my phone. It was crisp and clear. The woman in the photo was standing on tiptoe, pressing a kiss to Riley's lips. Even with only a side profile, I knew her instantly. Celeste, his assistant. She had joined his company straight out of college just 6 months ago. I remembered how Riley once spoke kindly of her, even mentioning how she nearly got into a dispute with her landlord because she couldn't afford rent. And now she was living in the house I had built with dreams. While I lived in a dream built on lies, I had once suggested, innocently, with admiration, that if his new assistant was doing a good job, maybe he should consider giving her a raise. But Riley, he had gone beyond a raise. He had gifted her the sanctuary I had built with dreams, the home we were supposed to start our lives in together. When we arrived home, Riley, as if reading from a well-rehearsed script, whistled cheerfully and handed me his phone. Then, with an air of domestic comfort, he strolled into the kitchen and casually announced he'd be making dinner. I didn't go to the photos he'd offered up so willingly. Instead, I opened his chat history with Celeste. As I expected, it was sterile, clean, calculated, and purely professional. A performance designed to erase suspicion. He peeked out of the kitchen moments later and asked if I wanted soup. Noticing I hadn't opened the photo album, he stayed perfectly at ease, his facade flawless. Chuckling, he said with confidence, "Go ahead, sweetheart. Check my phone all you want. I love you and only you in this lifetime. I'll prove it to you through my actions." A faint smile touched my lips. He believed he had succeeded, believed he had bought my trust once more, with borrowed charm and hollow words. But what he didn't know was that I wasn't smiling out of relief. I was smiling at the irony, at how well he had choreographed this illusion, and at myself for falling for it for so long. There's a unique kind of grief when you realize the person you trusted most was playing both roles, the comfort and the betrayal. Once he turned back to the kitchen, I began my quiet investigation. I remembered a video I had seen online, not about love, but about detecting hidden spyware in smartphones. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sometimes we use the tools of hackers to uncover emotional crimes. Sure enough, buried deep in the system was a hidden app clone. It required a password. Riley always used the same one. I hesitated, then typed in my own birthday. The app unlocked immediately. The symbolism didn't escape me. He had used my birth date as the code to hide a life I was never meant to see. The cruelty of it made my stomach churn. With trembling fingers, I opened the app. Only one contact appeared, and the moment I read their conversation, nausea rose in my throat. The messages were intimate, shameless, filled with the kind of passion and cruelty that made a mockery of everything we had built. But I didn't cry. I documented. I recorded the entire chat, every vile word, and sent it to myself from Riley's account. Then I erased every trace, leaving the phone pristine, like a crime scene wiped clean. When Riley returned with dinner, his phone was right where he left it, on the coffee table, untouched. I was watching television, playing my part perfectly. He smiled, self-satisfied. "See? With your great taste, how could you have picked the wrong husband?" That night I couldn't sleep. Not even the sedatives I usually took for my insomnia could numb the ache in my soul. Around midnight, his phone rang. I kept my eyes shut, instinctively aware that something was about to unfold. The ringing stopped. Then a whisper, his breath close to my ear. "Sarah." He waited, testing my stillness. I didn't move. Satisfied, he quietly got out of bed and tiptoed out. From the crack in the door, I watched him slip into the study. He was confident, certain the pills had knocked me into deep sleep. But tonight, my body had rejected rest, my spirit too restless, too alert. Then I heard his voice, clear, unfiltered, as if he had mistakenly left the phone on speaker. "Didn't I satisfy you last night? Why are you so needy again? Of course I love you. Sarah could never compare to you. any real man would know who to choose. And then her voice, sweet and venomous. Then why are you still wasting time with that boring woman? If you marry me, I'll make you happy. Anytime, anywhere. A chair scraped across the floor. Maybe he realized his mistake. The speakerphone. His tone darkened. I'll spoil you all you want, but don't cause trouble in front of Sarah. If she finds out, I won't forgive you. That was enough. I stopped listening. Returning to bed, I lay still, bow still, pretending to sleep. Moments later, he returned too, kissing my forehead with the same lips that had just whispered betrayal. He fell asleep peacefully. I lay awake, my mind buzzing with clarity. At dawn, he brought me breakfast. Sarah, sleeping too much isn't healthy. Wake up and eat. I'm heading to the office. And then he left, like nothing had happened. If he had taken a closer look, he might have noticed the bloodshot veins in my eyes. Proof that sleep never came. Proof that his act no longer fooled me. I took the breakfast he had made, stepped outside, and fed it to the stray dogs in the neighborhood. Somehow, giving it away felt symbolic, like letting go of a lie I no longer wanted to consume. Then I took a taxi to the house that was meant to be ours. Fate has its ways. As I entered the neighborhood, the woman I had met at the mall appeared again. Her face was etched with concern. Sweetheart, you didn't sleep at all last night, did you? You look so tired. Her gentle words nearly broke the dam I had been holding in. In a world full of masks and pretenders, her simple human concern felt like grace. A near stranger, someone I had only met a couple of times, could immediately tell that something was wrong. Yet the man who had known me for 10 years, the one I had been in love with for 5, failed to notice a single thing. That mistress left about half an hour ago in a Rolls-Royce Phantom. The woman continued. I even took a picture for you with that. She sent the photo to my phone, staring at the familiar license plate, and the image of Celeste climbing into the car, immediately locking lips with Riley. I felt surprisingly calm. I even had the presence of mind to ask, you recognize this car's license plate? People who lived in this neighborhood were all wealthy. She clearly wasn't someone who lacked money. I had a feeling that most people at that age wouldn't be able to recognize a brand so accurately. She signed because my son has the same one, but he barely used it for a month before leaving it to gather dust in the garage. I always scold him about it, so naturally I remember it well. I used my birthday to unlock the door to our marital home. Inside the entrance, 2 pairs of neatly arranged couples' slippers sat side by side. The house was filled with traces of a shared life, matching couples' items scattered throughout the rooms. Flowers carefully tended to on the balcony, a fully stocked fridge, and on the bedside table, in the bedroom, a few opened boxes of contraceptives lying blatantly in the open. Anyone walking in would immediately assume that the people living here were a loving married couple. Our wedding photo, mine and Riley's, hung prominently above the bed. I stared at the picture, at the man gazing at me with such tenderness, and silently asked in my heart, Riley, what exactly do you take me for reaching into my bag? I pulled out several small surveillance cameras and carefully placed them in inconspicuous corners around the house. After finishing, I quickly left this place that reeked of betrayal. I didn't expect to see that auntie, still waiting downstairs, noticing my pale face. She looked at me with concern. Dear, it's almost noon. Come to my house and rest a bit. I'll make you something to eat, she offered kindly. I shook my head, forcing a smile, as I thanked her before leaving. After saying goodbye, I stopped by a flower shop and bought 2 bouquets. Then at a nearby store, I grabbed a few bottles of alcohol before taking a cab to the cemetery from daylight to sunset. I sat in front of my parents' graves, drinking bottle after bottle. When Riley called, I was staring blankly at the sky. Sarah, I have to leave for an urgent business trip. I'll be heading straight from the office by the time I return. The new house's smell should have aired out, and I'll take you to see it. Then I replied instinctively, okay, don't overwork yourself. Take care. After spending the whole afternoon talking to my parents, my voice had become hoarse. Riley noticed immediately and sounded worried. Drink some warm water, okay? And if you catch a cold, take some medicine right away. Suddenly, a familiar woman's voice called out from the other end of the phone. Honey, are you done yet? Come eat. The line went dead, barely. 2 minutes later, Riley called back. Elias's wife came to the office just now. That was her calling him, he explained, his tone laced with careful hesitation. I frowned. Why are you nervous about someone calling their husband? Riley awkwardly changed the subject, chatting idly for a bit. Once he was sure I hadn't caught on to anything suspicious, he ended the call, seemingly relieved by the time I left the cemetery. The sky had already turned pitch black. I checked my phone, no rides available. I started walking along the empty road when a car pulled up beside me, honking a few times. I stopped and glanced through the half-lowered window, meeting the eyes of the man in the driver's seat. Where are you headed? I'll take you. The car had already been driving for quite some distance when it suddenly dawned on me just how reckless I had been. Dark Night Cemetery, a strange man. It was the perfect setup for a horror movie. Yet here I was getting into a stranger's car. Without a second thought, I must have been emboldened by the alcohol. Thank you. Just drop me off somewhere. I can catch a ride, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The man chuckled lightly, as if he could hear the tremble in my tone. Took you long enough to realize the danger. You are only scared now. I stiffened and turned to look at him, my eyes glistening with unheeded tears under the passing streetlights. Clearing his throat, he said somewhat awkwardly, All right, I won't tease you anymore. You know, a woman with curly hair kind of pretty. I nodded, puzzled. He sighed, She's my mom. As it turned out, the auntie from earlier had sensed something was wrong with me. She had secretly followed me out of the neighborhood, and upon seeing me buy chrysanthemums and alcohol, guessed that I was headed to a cemetery, worried. She called her son this man Mattis, and he had been waiting outside the cemetery for 6 or 7 hours. Guilt washed over me. I'm really sorry for wasting your time, I murmured, when he asked where he should drop me off. I thought about the marriage certificate I had retrieved from home that morning, and whispered, Take me back to my neighborhood. I'm bringing the police to catch them in the act. I've always been someone who depends on others. When my parents died in an accident, I hadn't even graduated college yet at the time. Riley and I had only been together for 6 months, but he was the one who ran around handling the funeral for me. When my relatives tried to fight me for my parents' inheritance, Riley stood in front of me hiring lawyers to defend my rights. From that moment on, I transferred all the dependence I once had on my parents onto him. When Riley wanted to start his own business, I used my inheritance to help pave the way for him. He worked hard and proved himself building his company into something respectable in just 4 years because of a drowning incident in my childhood. My body has always been weak and prone to the cold. I also struggled to conceive, which made Riley's mother dislike me. She feared I wouldn't be able to give him children. She constantly urged Riley to break up with me. Riley, however, didn't want me to feel hurt. He spent years going back and forth, trying to win his parents' approval. Finally, last year, they relented. The very next day, Riley proposed, and that same day we went to the registry office and got our marriage certificate. If Linda hadn't told me, I probably never would have found out about Riley's betrayal. Because he treated me too well, so well, that while many women hesitated to get married, I had been eagerly looking forward to walking down the aisle in my wedding dress. If Riley hadn't insisted on giving me a perfect wedding, if he hadn't had someone calculate the most auspicious date at the end of the month, our wedding wouldn't have been delayed until now if things had gone as planned. Riley knew very well that I had unconditional trust in him. That's why when he confidently told me not to go to the wedding house alone, I obeyed without question. And when he assured me he had to leave for a last-minute business trip, I had no reason to doubt him. But now with the wedding date fast approaching. The house needed to be restored to its original state, and I knew without a doubt he and Celeste were inside savoring their final moments together. Standing downstairs, I looked up at the warmly lit window, taking out my phone. I deliberately put on a frightened expression and dialed the emergency number. "Hello, my wedding house has been illegally trespassed. Please send someone over as soon as possible." After hanging up, I turned to the man beside me who was struggling to hold back laughter. "Anything else? Or are you just here to watch the drama unfold?" Matthias raised his hands in surrender, signaling that he was leaving. But just as he disappeared, someone else arrived, his mother, and she didn't come alone. Behind Linda stood 7 or 8 other women, all around her age, exuding an air of seasoned determination. "Sweetheart, you are inexperienced in dealing with this kind of thing. These are my close friends. Don't worry, we'll make sure those 2 scumbags regret ever stepping foot in your house. That's right. Don't be afraid, dear. We've got your back." For some reason, every time Linda showed up, even with her often unreasonable and boundary-pushing actions, I never found myself annoyed. In fact, in my lowest moments, it was her presence that helped me recover the quickest, as if they were more invested in this than I was. The group of women set PR into action the moment the police arrived, eagerly explaining the situation in overlapping voices. Meanwhile, I presented my marriage certificate and retrieved the house deed from my photo album, proving my legal claim to the property. I also informed the police that my husband had told me he was on a business trip, so whoever was inside had to be an intruder. The officers, seasoned in their field, immediately picked up on the situation. I pretended not to notice the sympathy in their eyes as I followed them to the door of the wedding house. The building was relatively new, and only 1 unit on this floor had been sold hours. That meant Riley and Celeste never had to worry about being caught, even from outside. The sounds coming from inside left little to the imagination, shielded by the crowd. I stood toward the back when suddenly a comforting warmth enveloped my hand. Linda gave it a reassuring squeeze, and "Mermaid sweetheart, when taking out the trash, do it quickly. Otherwise, the stench will cling to you. Don't be afraid." The door wasn't opened until after repeated knocking. Riley stood there shirtless, his face contorted with irritation. But the moment he saw the packed doorway, he froze. "Who are you looking for? We received a report that this unit has not been officially occupied. You are illegally trespassing. Please cooperate with our investigation." Annoyed, Riley blocked the doorway. "Who has this much free time to report nonsense? This is my house. My wife and I both live here. You must be mistaken." With a swift move, one of the officers nudged Riley aside, and the crowd surged forward into the apartment. I remained at the back, unnoticed by him. "Hun, who's at the door?" Celeste emerged from the bedroom, clad in a spaghetti strap nightgown, oblivious to the unfolding chaos. As she stepped into the living room, she clutched her chest in shock at the sight of so many people. "Who the hell are you? What are you doing? Barging into someone else's home?" One of the older women squinted at Riley. "Puzzled young man. You look familiar. Must be a resident here. But the girl you brought when you bought this house didn't look like her." A bead of sweat formed on Riley's forehead. "Auntie, you must be mistaken. This is my wife. We're already legally married, just haven't had the wedding yet." The officer standing at the front turned around and gave me another sympathetic glance. Following his gaze, Riley finally noticed me among the crowd. His face turned deathly pale. "Sarah, I can explain. This is all just a misunderstanding." I stood motionless, staring at him with a blank expression. Riley attempted to push through the crowd toward me, but tripped on someone's foot and fell flat on his face. "So she's the mistress. Our community doesn't tolerate filth like this, ladies. Let's take care of her." I didn't know which aunt shouted at first, but within seconds, Celeste's screams filled the apartment. The police, knowing this was a domestic matter, made a half-hearted attempt to intervene. But when they saw how fiercely the women fought, they backed off to avoid getting caught in the crossfire, only stepping in when things got too rough. After a few minutes, the two were pinned down, bruised, and battered. Once the situation was deemed under control, the officers finally intervened. A group of about 10 of us was taken to the police station. When Riley finished giving his statement and walked out, he looked like he had been beaten beyond recognition. I was by the entrance helping the aunties into their respective cars when he staggered toward me. "Sarah, you did this on purpose, didn't you?" His swollen face barely resembled his former self. His own mother probably wouldn't have recognized him. I sighed inwardly, acknowledging how ruthlessly the aunties had handled him. But I had to admit, I felt incredibly satisfied. I neither confirmed nor denied his accusation. Instead, I looked him straight in the eye and stated calmly, "Let's get divorced. The police report will prove you are at fault. We bought the wedding house together, so you'll pay me half. It's market value in cash," I continued. "I funded most of the company's startup costs, but considering your years of effort, I'll take 80% of the company's current valuation in cash. And finally, the wedding cost a fortune. Since it's canceled due to your infidelity, you'll reimburse me twice the amount as compensation." I met his stunned gaze. "Sounds fair. Don't you think?" Riley didn't respond. From the moment he saw me, he had been staring blankly, speechless. I was being stared at impatiently. Just as I was about to say something else, Celeste came out. She looked no better than Riley. Her hair was a mess, as if large chunks had been yanked out, and both of her eyes were blackened with swollen cheeks, streaked with tears. "Honey," Riley instinctively turned around, seeing Celeste trying to act coy with that battered face. He recoiled in shock, taking a big step back. "What the hell are you calling me that for? Stay away from me." Perhaps he had finally snapped back to reality. After yelling at Celeste, turned his full attention to me. "Sarah, I was wrong. I swear she meant nothing to me. It was just a fling. The one I truly love is you. Please give me another chance." As he spoke, Riley made a move to kneel right in front of the police station. Disgusted, I stepped back, unwilling to waste another word on him. "Just looking at you makes me sick. The only thing I want to discuss with you is the divorce, nothing else, right?" Then the car I had called arrived, ignoring Riley's desperate shouts behind me. I got in and left in the rear-view mirror. I saw Celeste reaching out to hug Riley, only for him to shove her away violently. She collapsed onto the ground, but I felt nothing, just a deep sense of revulsion. The apartment I lived in was a gift from my parents. When I got into university, during the early days of my startup, money was tight, and since Riley didn't want to rely entirely on my finances, I let him move in to save on rent. We ended up living together for almost 5 years now. As I deleted his fingerprint from the door lock and changed the passcode, I stepped inside and began packing up his things. The more I cleaned, the more I realized his presence was everywhere. His clothes, his books, even the faint scent of his cologne lingered in the air. The thought suddenly hit me, maybe I should just sell this place. Over an hour later, I heard a noise at the door. After failing to unlock it with his fingerprint and the new code, Riley started frantically ringing the doorbell, his voice growing more desperate. "Sarah, please let me in. Let me explain." It was the middle of the night, worried about disturbing the neighbors. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and held it behind me before opening the door. Riley had treated his injuries. He no longer looked as terrifying as before. The moment he stepped inside, he dropped to his knees. "Sarah," I kicked Celeste out. "I know I was a bastard for letting her stay in our home, but I swear it was just a moment of weakness." I said nothing, seeing no reaction from me. Slowly inched forward on his knees, but the moment he saw me raise the knife, he froze. "Don't do anything rash. I won't come any closer." He took a few deep breaths before continuing. "I know you're a clean freak. If you don't like this place anymore, we can get a new one tomorrow. I'll put all my assets in your name. Sarah, please just give me one more chance." As a child, I nearly drowned while playing, and ever since my parents had raised me with great care, trusting someone for me meant knowing they would wholeheartedly protect me. But if I ever discovered I had been deceived, I could detach myself just as quickly. Years of love don't disappear overnight, but the moment I found out RI had cheated, our future was erased. That being said, no one would turn down money. On the way back to my complex with Matthias, I glanced at the security camera I had installed in our marital home earlier that morning. At that exact moment, Riley and Celeste had just finished eating. I played the recording. Celeste's voice rang out. "Why can't you just divorce her?" Riley's response was chilling. He spoke about me as if I were a mere inconvenience. "I'm too financially tied to her company. If we divorce, I'll have to give up a huge chunk of my wealth. I worked too hard for that money. I can't bear to let it go then," as if warning her, he added. "So be smart. Don't cause trouble in front of Sarah. She's easy to fool, but she doesn't tolerate betrayal. I can't afford to divorce her." Sitting in the car, speeding toward downtown, I listened to their scheming voices fill the cabin. Matthias, who had been silent until now, clenched the steering wheel. He opened his mouth a few times, hesitating before finally speaking. "This guy is absolutely disgusting. But just so you know, not all men are this manipulative." I knew Riley's promises were just a stalling tactic, but putting all his assets in my name, that was an enticing offer. Sensing my hesitation, Riley pressed further. "Sarah, I swear I'll call a lawyer first thing in the morning. Everything will be in your name. From now on, I'll do whatever you say." But the next morning, Riley didn't just show up with a lawyer. He brought his parents too. I had no idea what he had told them the night before, but the moment they walked in, they started berating him. His mother, teary-eyed, grabbed my hand, her voice full of remorse. "It's my fault I didn't raise my son right. If only I had taught him better. If Riley hadn't cheated, I might have been moved by her sincerity. I might have softened, even believed her words. But now I just watched their performance in silence, unmoved, noticing my complete lack of reaction." Riley's mother's expression flickered, first with embarrassment, then with frustration. But after exchanging a glance with Riley, she forced a smile and lowered her voice. "Sarah, I know Riley was wrong, but you two are legally married. Now, a husband and wife share their joys and sorrows. What benefits one benefits the other, and what harms one harms both. Your company is about to go public. If news of a divorce gets out now, it'll definitely affect the company's reputation. You wouldn't want all the money you invested to go down the drain, would you?" Ree knew me well. He must have realized that my resolve had wavered the moment he brought up money last night. That was why he had his mother cut straight to the point today, using the company's future as leverage to make me reconsider. Yesterday, outside the police station, I had thrown a long list of expenses at Riley, laying out every financial detail. After a night of calm reflection, I knew he didn't have enough liquid assets to pay me off in one go if I pushed him too hard. I might corner him into a desperate move leading to mutual destruction. So after careful thought, I finally spoke fine. "I won't file for divorce just yet, but Riley has to sign a written agreement if he ever cheats again. He leaves with nothing, no assets, no money, no bargaining. Even if Riley transferred everything to my name in a negotiated divorce, I'd still have to give him something." I also knew that a written agreement wouldn't hold much legal weight, but as I watched Riley's parents seething in silent frustration, and as I saw him physically write down every word I had just dictated, his face flashing with unwillingness and resentment, I felt an unexpected sense of satisfaction as they were leaving. My mother-in-law suddenly turned back after taking a few steps. "Sarah," she said, hesitating for a moment. "I thought about it, and I have to say this. Have a baby with Riley as soon as possible. Once a man becomes a father, he settles down. When that happens, all these little squabbles will be nothing. You'll have a happy family, and everything will fall into place." I smiled faintly, neither agreeing nor arguing. After spending the night on the couch, Riley tried to return to the master bedroom once his parents were gone. But I blocked his way for now. "You can stay in the guest room," I said coldly. "Just the thought of you sleeping with another woman makes me sick. Stay away from me until I decide whether or not to forgive you." Riley was furious. But to my surprise, he swallowed his anger and instead apologized again, keeping his tone calm and remorseful. But I no longer trusted a single word he said. After what I had learned yesterday, his calculations, his manipulations, I remained on high alert whenever we were under the same roof. Yet, despite my caution, I still let my guard down. Several sleepless nights took their toll that evening. Completely exhausted, I took a sleeping pill before bed, but something felt off. The drug worked too fast. Normally, even with medication, I needed at least 20 minutes to fall asleep. But tonight, within 5, my body was already sinking into drowsiness. A deep sense of unease surged through me, reaching under my pillow. I retrieved the small knife I had hidden there and pressed the blade against my arm beneath the covers, making a shallow cut. The sharp sting jolted me back to consciousness, just in time. The bedroom door creaked open. I heard footsteps pause at the entrance, then slowly approach the mattress, dipped slightly under the weight of someone sitting down. Then I felt it cool, fingers wrapped around my neck. "Sarah Riley," murmured his voice, unsettlingly calm. "When did you get so clever?" He tightened his grip. "If you had just stayed ignorant, we could have had a good life together. I would have treated you well, you know." His fingers pressed harder. My breath hitched, panic clawing at my chest. Just as I prepared to struggle, the pressure on my throat suddenly eased. "You can't die. Not yet." I whispered. "At least not before the wedding. Once everyone knows you are my wife, if you have an unfortunate accident, all of your assets will still belong to me." Then he left, the moment I heard the front door close behind him. I finally allowed myself to gasp for air, throwing off the blanket. I shivered as the cold air hit my damp skin. It was only then that I realized I was drenched in sweat. My gaze fell to my arm, where fresh cuts smart my skin. The bed sheets beneath me were stained with blood. I sat frozen for a long time before I finally forced myself to move. I needed to go to the hospital. I never thought Riley would actually try to kill me 10 years. We had known each other for 10 years. For all those years I believed in his love, in his care. But now, staring at the evidence of his betrayal and cruelty, I realized something chilling. I had never truly known the kind of man R.I. was. A couple of days ago, Linda had messaged me, asking if I needed help. When I told her I wanted to secure my assets before filing for divorce, she had supported my decision. Now, as the nurse finished bandaging my arm, I checked the time. It was past 1:00 a.m. The emergency room had quieted down. My fingers hovered over Linda's contact, hesitating. Then, with slightly shaking hands, I sent her a message. I knew it was late. I knew I might be disturbing her, but after coming so close to death tonight, I realized there was no one else I could turn to. I had barely hit send when my phone rang. It was Linda. I hesitated for a second before answering. "Where are you right now?" she asked immediately after I told her my location. I heard her speaking to someone in the background before returning to me. "Stay put. Keep your phone on. I'll be there soon." There was something about Linda, something steady, something grounding. Even when I had been drowning in fear, hearing her voice now made me feel safe. She arrived quicker than I expected, and she wasn't alone. Behind her, running toward me, was Matthias. For a brief moment, guilt NWD at me. I had dragged this woman out of bed in the middle of the night. I had even made her bring her son along. Sensing my unease, Linda pulled me into a comforting embrace. "Sarah," she murmured, her voice warm and reassuring. "Don't feel bad about this. When I saw your message, I was relieved. I'm glad you reached out to me when you needed help." It was the first time she had ever called me by my name, and somehow that simple gesture made my eyes sting. With unheeded tears, the moment tears welled up in my eyes, I threw myself into Linda's arms and broke down sobbing uncontrollably. I cried out of fear, out of frustration. I cried because I missed my parents, and I cried because I was so grateful for Linda. When I finally calmed down, I realized that Matthias had been silently handing me tissues the entire time. My face flushed with embarrassment. Linda stepped aside to ask the nurse about my wound. I didn't dare look at Matthias, and instead murmured an apology. Sorry, I was thinking about my parents. It won't happen again, and I won't compete with you for Linda's attention. If I were in his shoes, if my mom was being hugged in the middle of the night by someone she barely knew, I'd feel a little uncomfortable too, even if I understood the situation. But to my surprise, Matthias actually thanked me. Ever since I brought my mom here from our hometown, she's felt out of place. Other than occasionally chatting with a few old friends, she mostly just scrolls through TikTok, saying she doesn't fit in with the big city. He looked at me seriously. I was so busy with work that I didn't notice how unhappy she was. I know exactly how you two met and what you talked about. Before, she kept saying she wanted to go back home, but after she told you about that scumbag, she suddenly changed her mind. She said she wanted to stay and help you, and ever since that day, she's had this energy I haven't seen in a long time. I knew that Linda had talked to other neighbors before about their husbands' affairs, but every time she was either told to mind her own business or faced retaliation from the couples who accused her of trying to ruin their marriage. Linda, who had always been outspoken and righteous, struggled to adapt to the way people in the city interacted. Everyone, too, caught up in their own affairs to stand up for what's right until she met me. When she told me about Riley's infidelity, I believed her, and the next day, I went to see the truth for myself. I even kept thanking her for telling me I should be the one thanking you. Matthias continued, since meeting you, my mom has been genuinely happy. She always believed she wasn't in the wrong. But you gave her the confidence to stand by that belief. Hearing this, I felt a whirlwind of emotions when Linda first questioned my relationship with Riley. I had been caught off guard, but maybe it was fate, or maybe I just instinctively knew she wasn't a bad person either way. Our connection had left a profound impact on both of our lives. After Matthias mentioned where their hometown was, everything about Linda's personality suddenly made sense. People from there were known for their warmth, honesty, and straightforwardness. They spoke their minds without hidden agendas or manipulations. I watched as Linda typed on her phone for a long time before finally coming back. Sarah, I got all the post-care instructions from the nurse. If you don't feel comfortable staying at my place, you still have to follow these. I looked at the message she sent me. There were quite a few typos, but every word was filled with sincerity. On the way back, Matthias asked how I planned to deal with Riley. The warmth I had been feeling moments ago vanished instantly on my way to the hospital. Earlier, I had checked the surveillance feed near our marital home. As expected, Riley had gone there. Celeste was already gone. Riley sat alone in the dark living room, lost in thought. I want him to pay, but since no real harm has been done yet, even if it's caught, he might not face much of a sentence. I never asked Matthias what he did for a living. He simply held out his hand. Give me the pills from your bottle. I trusted Linda, so I trusted him. From what Riley said, he won't make any moves before the wedding. If you want him to expose himself, you can wait. Let him act first. Catch him in the moment. But doing that puts you at risk. I understood the words he left unspoken. It's fine. That's exactly what I was thinking. No, absolutely not. Linda and I spoke at the same time. Matthias looked frustrated, but didn't argue, holding Linda's hand. I carefully explained my plan and every detail I had considered. The car had been parked outside for a long time by the time she finally relented. Fine, but you have to keep in constant contact with me and my son. If you disappear, I swear I'll skin that trashy bastard alive. Linda's unwavering sense of justice. If we were in ancient times, she would have been a legendary heroine. But in the modern world, she always seemed a little out of place, and yet I loved that about her. I hugged her and promised I would stay in touch. Then, after saying goodbye to Matthias, I got out of the car. Riley was still sitting in the same spot in the dark and living room. Taking advantage of the moment, I stripped the blood-stained bed sheets, set them on fire, and flushed the ashes down the toilet. Riley returned home around 5 in the morning. When I got up, he acted like nothing had happened. smiling warmly. He woke me up and said breakfast is ready. The wedding day arrived quickly, early in the morning. The makeup artist began working on me. Riley, waiting at the hotel, kept texting about how nervous he was. Everything proceeded as if we were the picture of a loving couple, since we hadn't arranged for bridesmaids, groomsmen, or a wedding procession. I got into a car alone after my makeup was done and headed to the hotel. Halfway there, I received a friend request. I knew from the name alone that it was Celeste. After her visit to the police station, she had vanished. Riley had done a good job covering his tracks for her to add me. Now, right before the wedding, she was clearly just trying to get under my skin. I accepted the request. Sarah, you probably won't believe me, but I have to warn you, R.I. drugged you. I don't know where he got it from, but the drug is said to make you gradually lose your mind and die without anyone realizing what's happening. I'm not a good person, but I'm only in this for money. I never wanted to be part of something that takes a life. I never expected Riley to be this kind of man. There are two types of pills. One helps you fall asleep quickly every night, and the other, he plans to make you take it at the wedding. When the two mix, you'll break down immediately. He doesn't just want you dead, he wants you to lose your mind in front of everyone. To be humiliated beyond repair, my heart plummeted. I was afraid Linda would act impulsively. So with trembling fingers, I forwarded the message to Matthias. His reply came almost instantly. Don't worry, I noticed something was off. The pills have already been switched. My heartbeat gradually steadied. As the hotel drew closer, I regained my calm. Riley was waiting at the entrance, dressed in an elegant white suit. He grinned and carried me out of the car in front of the cheering crowd, holding me tightly. He stepped into the hotel. Sarah, the guests are almost here. Go get changed. I'll wait for you downstairs. He handed me a glass of water as he spoke. Without a second thought, I drank it all in one gulp. Riley's smile deepened. After he left, the makeup artist began working on my hair and outfit. Staring at my reflection in the mirror, I found my eyes brimming with hatred. Everything is set. A message popped up on my phone. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the room. This will all be over soon. As I approached the banquet hall, I reminded myself of that since my parents had long passed. The traditional moment where a bride's father walks her down the aisle had been removed from the ceremony. Instead, Riley took my hand and led me to the center of the stage. Under the dazzling lights, he looked completely devoted, every bit the perfect groom. Then suddenly, the giant screen behind us flickered. Thinking it was a mistake, the host chuckled, making a light-hearted joke while signaling the staff to fix it. But before they could react, a recording played over the speakers. A young man and a woman's voices rang out, plotting. They were discussing in detail how to secretly transfer assets out of my name without me noticing. Riley's face twisted in shock. Seeing his expression, I finally smiled. A genuine smile. Turn it off. Shut it down. Now, Ree shouted desperately, but his microphone had already been cut. The guests, mesmerized by the shocking conversation, ignored his frantic yelling. I glanced at Riley's parents. They had leapt to their feet, scrambling to explain themselves to those around them. No one listened. As the recording ended, the screen switched to a video. Riley and his parents sitting comfortably in the living room of our marital home, discussing how to get rid of me. I hadn't expected Riley to be this foolish. He must have assumed I would never step foot in that house again, so he hadn't held back watching the footage. I had wanted to call the police immediately, but I held back. I pretended to know nothing. I softened my attitude toward Riley. I made him think he had fooled me once again. Riley and his family were in complete panic. The guests, utterly engrossed in the scandalous revelation, didn't notice the uniformed officers entering the banquet hall. The police didn't rush forward to make arrests. Instead, they silently watched the footage unfold with the rest of us. Maybe the recordings wouldn't hold up as official evidence, but the malice in Riley and his parents' words, everyone in this room had heard it. I noticed several guests had pulled out their phones, recording everything on the big screen. Even if the law couldn't punish them, public outrage would. There was actually one more piece of footage, a video of Riley and Celeste in our wedding suite, tangled up in each other, their clothes in disarray. But earlier on my way here, Celeste had sent me a message. It did in fact help me avoid a major risk as a trade-off. I had Matthias delete the video. What Riley didn't know was that I had also installed a camera in the master bedroom. Every moment, him changing his bandages, him strangling me in the middle of the night, was all recorded in crystal clear detail. The footage showed me barely holding on, reaching under my pillow to grab a knife, only to be pinned to the ground by a hotel staff member struggling to get up. Riley's voice rang out with unfiltered rage. "Sarah, so you knew all along. I regret it. I should have just strangled you to death back then." The video ended for a few seconds. The banquet hall was engulfed in silence. And then chaos erupted. The police swiftly moved in, restraining Riley's family. While they desperately claimed the video was fake, they simultaneously turned to me begging for mercy. "Sarah, we were wrong. Please say something on our behalf." As the guests slowly trickled out, the dust finally settled. My body felt completely drained. I had no strength left to move. Lying on the stage in my wedding dress, I listened as footsteps approached. With a hoarse voice I murmured, "If it weren't for you all, I would have been branded a lunatic in front of so many people. Today, there's no if calmer, never spares those with a wicked heart," Matthias replied, before effortlessly lifting me into his arms. Tears streamed down my face, through my lashes. I watched the flickering lights above me, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I truly felt alive. Mattis must have played a significant role in this. Riley and his parents were charged with attempted murder and received the maximum sentence. They appealed, but the second trial upheld the original verdict. Once their official sentence began, Riley requested to see me. I went to visit him, divorce papers in hand. It hadn't been long, but he no longer had the arrogant confidence he once carried. He had withered away his skin, stretched over bone, looking like a hollow shell of his former self. "Sarah, you are still as beautiful as ever," he said with a smile. But something about the way he looked at me, felt off. His mental state didn't seem stable. Sure enough, in the next second, his expression darkened. "If you hadn't caught me cheating, we could have had such a good life together. Tell me, how did you find out who told you?" His voice grew more agitated as he spoke, gripping the bars of his cell. He shook them violently until the guards had to forcibly restrain him. "What's wrong with just living a good life? Why did you have to ruin mine? You ungrateful bitch. I treated you like a queen for years, and you never once appreciated it." Riley's voice echoed through the room, filled with resentment and refusal to accept his fate. When he saw the divorce papers in my hand, his expression twisted into a grotesque snarl. He swore he would never sign them, not even if it killed him. But to my surprise, the prison officer pressed him down and forced him to sign on the dotted line. "You know exactly what you did. Stop wasting everyone's time. Just let her go. You piece of trash," the officer muttered under his breath. I glanced at him in surprise, then at the surveillance camera on the wall. The officer gave me a reassuring smile, feeling at ease. I retrieved the signed papers as Riley was dragged away. He turned his head and screamed curses at me, his voice filled with venom. Even if I die, I won't let you off the hook." Not long after I heard Celeste had gone back to her hometown, many of the guests at the wedding banquet had been employees from Riley's company. They recognized Celeste's voice in the video, and soon enough, word spread like wildfire. She had no place left in this city before leaving. She sent me a message. "I'm sorry. I know an apology won't make up for the pain I've caused you, but I've already faced my karma. I hope you can find happiness in the future." Not long after that, I heard that Riley had gone insane. A little while later, his mother got into a fight over some stolen goods and was beaten to death on the spot. When someone told Riley's father the news, within 2 days, he ran headfirst into a moving truck, ending his own life. I sold the company and every single thing that had any connection to Riley. I turned into cash with the money. I bought a mountain of gifts and treated the aunties who had helped me teach Riley and Celeste a lesson to a nice meal. After expressing my gratitude, I told them my plans to leave. Linda must have already guessed it. She had been unusually quiet throughout dinner. After saying my goodbyes to each of them, I noticed Linda still standing there smiling. I walked up to her auntie houses in your hometown. They're pretty cheap, right? Linda stared at me for a long moment before she finally understood what I meant. I preferred a quiet life, and my health had never been great. You silly girl, why didn't you say something sooner? I had no desire to stay in this city any longer. Matthias had mentioned wanting to take Linda back to their hometown, and the idea of leaving with them had taken root in my mind. However, Matthias hadn't told Linda about his plan yet, so when she found out I was going with them, she immediately started packing her bags. Son, I'm taking Sarah back home. You can rot in this godforsaken place by yourself. When Matthias sent me a video of her storming out, I laughed so hard, I nearly cried. I quickly called Linda auntie. It's only because your son mentioned wanting to take you home that I even thought about coming along. So don't rush. We'll leave together after he finishes handling everything here through the phone. I could hear Matthias being mercilessly scolded and beaten by Linda. My laughter didn't stop. Being alive really is a wonderful thing. The train rumbled steadily along the old railway tracks, winding through endless fields of golden wheat and patches of wild flowers, swaying under the afternoon sun. The rhythmic clatter of wheels against the rails blended with the occasional whistle, a sound both distant and nostalgic, like a melody guiding me toward an unfamiliar, yet strangely comforting future. I leaned against the cool window pane, watching the landscape shift from towering city buildings to rolling hills and open fields. The world outside felt vast, untouched, and welcoming, in a way the suffocating city never had. My reflection in the window was faint, ghostly, even as if the person staring back at me was someone I had left behind, someone who had walked through fire and survived across from me. Linda sat peeling an apple with the kind of practiced ease that only came with age. The blade of her small fruit knife moved skillfully, removing the skin in one long, perfect spiral that coiled in her palm like a delicate ribbon. She glanced up at me, a knowing smirk playing at her lips, still thinking about that mess back there. She asked, her voice tinged with amusement, as she handed me a slice of the freshly peeled apple. I accepted it with a small smile, not really, just wondering. If I had never caught him cheating, would I have lived my whole life in ignorance? Linda let out a scoff, shaking her head. You living in ignorance, please. A girl like you would have figured it out sooner or later. Maybe not as spectacularly as you did, but fate has a way of revealing the truth one way or another. I chuckled softly, taking a bite. The apple was crisp, juicy, and sweet, its taste oddly symbolic, like the flavor of newfound freedom. Beside me, Matthias was fast asleep, his arms crossed over his chest, his head tilted slightly to the side. The gentle rise and fall of his breathing blended with the steady rhythm of the train. The man had been there through everything, a quiet presence who never asked for explanations, nor demanded anything in return. I never asked why he had helped me that night, nor why he had stayed by my side, and perhaps I didn't need to. Some things in life didn't need explanations. They just were. The train slowed as we neared the station, and the scenery outside shifted. Once again, the golden fields and winding hills made way for a quaint little town. Nestled between clusters of green trees, a river shimmered in the distance, its surface reflecting the late afternoon sunlight, casting a golden glow over the rooftops of old houses lined with wooden fences. Linda stretched her arms with a content sigh. This is it. Welcome to our humble little town. As we stepped off the train, a cool breeze brushed against my skin, carrying with it the scent of fresh earth, blooming flowers, and something faintly sweet, maybe freshly baked bread from a nearby bakery. The air was different from the city's smog-filled heavy atmosphere. It was clean, light, and full of life. Matthias grabbed my suitcase before I could protest. effortlessly slinging it over his shoulder. "Don't look at me like that. If I let you carry this, my mom's gonna scold me for days." Linda hummed in agreement, patting my shoulder. "He's right. You are a delicate young lady. Let the men do the heavy lifting." I rolled my eyes, but smiled nonetheless. The town was alive with simple, everyday warmth. Children ran barefoot across the cobbled streets, their laughter ringing in the air like wind chimes. Shopkeepers stood outside their stores, exchanging greetings with familiar customers. Elderly folks sat on wooden benches under the shade of large trees, chatting leisurely while watching the world pass by. Linda's house wasn't far. A charming little place with a red brick facade, ivy creeping up its walls, and a weathered wooden fence that had clearly been lovingly maintained over the years. As we stepped inside, a wave of warmth enveloped me, along with the mouth-watering aroma of something delicious simmering in the kitchen. "I knew you'd be hungry after the trip," Linda called out, already setting bowls onto the dining table. I made braised pork, stir-fried greens, and fresh dumplings. The sight of the food steaming, fragrant, inviting, sent an unexpected wave of warmth through my chest. For so long, I had been caught up in the storm of my past, fighting battles I never wanted to fight. But here in this small, unassuming kitchen, surrounded by people who had stood by me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. I felt home. We sat down for dinner, and Linda poured each of us a small cup of warm rice wine. She raised hers first. "To new beginnings," she said, her eyes twinkling. Mattia smirked, lifting his cup to peace and quiet, and hopefully no more drama. I met their gazes and lifted mine as well. "To living," I said simply, and as our cups clinked together, a strange but comforting peace settled within me. The past was behind me. Now its weight no longer suffocating me. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in forever, I wasn't afraid, because this time I wasn't alone. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.